Bust it.
Hello and thanks for joining us. It's Political Platform on Repa FM. My name is Amechi Anakwo. We're also on AIT Abuja and AIT International. You can also check us out on our YouTube page to check see this edition and previous editions. Is it President Muhammad Buhari's last broadcast as president talking about Democracy Day broadcast? Well, the chairman of PDP, Uche Secondus, thinks so. He says the president enjoyed it and it will definitely be his last. The next time he's addressing Nigerians on May 29, that will be in 2019, he says. It will be the handover, the ego swear in Abuja to a PDP government. But the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, disagrees. In fact, to him, this 2019 general election, especially the presidential election, will be the easiest for the APC. He says no party will get near the party, the ruling party in that contest. In Ekiti State, it is a loss for the PDP and again for the APC, as is a former National Publicity Secretary, interim spokesperson during the time the party had an interim executive, Dayo Adeyeye, the man that contested for the ticket of the PDP in Ekiti State, but lost to the deputy governor, has said that he will now pitch his tent with the APC. He says he was compelled by his community to do so. It was interesting, the reason he gave. I cannot change my community, but I can change my party. So when it comes to community or party royalty, he chose to go the way of the community. But the PDP has dismissed his defection, saying it will not affect the fortunes of the party. Is it the fact? We know the number of votes are there put in the primaries. He's not moving alone. He's moving with his supporters, and definitely a big loss for the PDP. How they move after that is another issue they need to consider. Now, what's happening in the National Assembly? Former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Atahiru Jega, said, just like Obasanjo said, they are composed of rogues and criminals. Jega was more humble and modest with his own description of the National Assembly members. He says there are bribe seekers and bribe takers, that in the guise of carrying out oversight functions, they go to ministries, departments, and agencies and blackmail them into giving them bribe. To an extent, there is a merit in what he's saying. We all know the issues of oversight function, but not all the lawmakers. There are some of them that are exceptional, that have a high integrity, but the National Assembly members expectedly have reacted and denied it, saying the former INEC chairman, the professor of political science, must mention names if he wants Nigerians to believe in and if he wants to secure his credibility. Just as a federal high court in Lagos has ordered the president of the Republic to give directives to the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation to begin immediate prosecution of National Assembly members, especially the leadership that padded the budget. Well, the Socioeconomic Rise and Accountability Project set up a non-governmental organization, went to court, asking the court to grant an order of mandamus compelling the government to do that. Now, will the government implement this court judgment? There are several court judgments that the executive has failed to implement. Will they sit on the fence or will they go by this other one? We'll wait to see. Sit at home in the southeast. IPOB is pitched against the security agencies and the governors of the state. The governors are threatening any public servant that fails to show up today in office with sanctions, while IPOB says everybody in the south must sit back to commemorate the memories of those that were killed during the Civil War. My colleagues are here with me. Adebayo Bodoro, welcome to Political Platform.
Amishi,
the Serap move, going to court to seek for prosecution of those who are involved in partnering budget, for whatever way you look at it, the way I look at it is that it is a good development. There has been agitation that for us to win the war against corruption, it must be all inclusive. The citizens must be carried along. It's not a battle,
and the citizens must be part of the struggle.
Must be part of it. The totality of it is that if it is those political office holders that are waging this war, the chances are that we'll be scratching it on the surface. But when you carry the people along, the chances are there that more exposures will be made. We have seen the whistleblower policy, and we have seen how effective the role it has played in this administration getting so huge sums of money. And because the way I look at it is that you look at corruption in this country, every political office holder in successive regime give their own narratives on the fight against corruption. The other day, a man I respect very much, extremely deep respect for him, our Civil War hero and former head of state, General Yakubu once said, corruption started after his regime. So everybody is giving himself a clean slate, a clean bill. Whereas it is not true. If you look at the speech that overthrown his government, it was one of the major high points of it from the first coup speech by late General Joseph Garba, was that the government was corrupt, and his successor, late General Murtala Muhammad, also happened that, in fact,
and purged the country of corruption.
Of corruption in his government,
especially the public service.
The 12 governors under his administration, 10 of them were found guilty of corrupt practices. 10 out of 12.
Maybe Gowon was referring only to himself because, as it were, he claimed that after he left office, his well-being and welfare was being taken care of by associates and friends. That he didn't have enough even to take care of his family.
Well, he could talk of himself, but he could not be talk of people in the administration. Don't forget the story of the two Josephs, Joseph Taka and Joseph Gonwok, the governor of Benue Plateau State, who was Aparaku, later Aparaku, former governor of Benue State, swore to an affidavit office exposing corrupt practices against him. And the then Federal Commissioner for Communication, Joseph Taka, was forced to resign based on allegations against him by Godwin Dabo on corruption charges.
So we can say that corruption is as old as Nigeria.
It's as old as everybody gives his narrative, everybody cleans himself. But when you carry the people along, when the people are involved, when the people own the fight, I can tell you the nation will win the fight.
Well, Serap is doing a lot. There's this focus on the National Assembly. Some people may believe it's undue that greater corruption is taking place in the civil service, as it were, that we appear not to be giving as much attention as we are giving to the National Assembly, to the public service. For instance, those that allege that the lawmakers are demanding for bribe, is it not the MDAs that are giving this bribe? It takes two to tango. They say Jomo Samo is also in the studio.
Yes, Amechi, thank you for bringing out that last point, because I just I was thinking in my mind, if you are going to prosecute the lawmakers for padding the budget, what happens to the office holders? What happens to the chief executives of agencies, parastatals and all that? Because you cannot achieve success if you don't play along. I still think the National Assembly, if you are holding them responsible for corruption, you still have to look into public office holders, those who hand over NDAs to, and find out what is happening there. Before now, like you said in Gowon's time, he actually went into public servants, looking at their habits and how they handle issues, especially concerning corruption. If we must fight it, let us fight it all inclusive. We don't just have to go and read Okonjo Iweala's book on corruption. You will know what she's talking about.
Where lawmakers we also fingered.
Yes,
but on the issue of intervention fund, and it's still on this constituency project, zonal intervention funds, that the court said there is even an attempt in this 2018 budget to loot about 40 billion out of 100 billion provided.
Do you know why some of these politicians can do anything to get to that seat? Because of this corrupt act because of the freebies they are getting from government, and it has to stop.
In the National Assembly, they call it a Zonal Intervention Fund or Constituency Project. In the executive, they call it a security vote. Transparency International and CISLAC some few days ago addressed a press conference in Abuja asking Nigerian government at the local, state and federal level to stop this issue of a security vote. For them, it's a slush funds. Nobody asks you question on how you spend it, and you divert it to your own pocket. We also need to focus attention on security votes, slush funds for the executive. But talking about the oversight functions of the National Assembly, let's tell you how it works. The National Assembly, by our laws, apart from making laws, they also have powers of oversight of the MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies, that to ensure that things are done accordingly in those places. And the National Assembly by law is even an anti-corruption agency. They have investigative powers. They have investigated corruption, alleged corruption, like the one with the sacked SG Babachi, and they came out with documented evidence on how money was removed from our coffers and moved into private accounts. So they have that responsibility. But what we have seen is that in doing this, when they go to the MDAs for oversight, they see some infractions. They take advantage of it to ask for their share. The MDAs now, in some instances, will comply. And two of them, they go home happily.
That's what that's what we call you rob my bag,
yeah,
I rob your bag.
They connive and collaborate, or let me say connive in looting our treasure.
Yes.
They keep quiet, everybody is happy, but the citizenry are shortchanged. In some other instances where the MDAs are not playing ball, you see the National Assembly members raise allegations on newspapers, radio, and television to suspect that certain billions amount of funds are missing. Some they are alleged corruption, so amounts stolen from here. The next day, the MDA consign moves across the meeting between them nocturnal most times, and that's the end of the case. And you never hear of this allegation. It dies a natural death. And the media helps by first propagating these allegations and not following on with the National Assembly members for us to get to the root of the matter. You are alleging that, say, 20 billion is missing, but all of a sudden, we keep quiet. We have to also play our role in ensuring that we don't allow them to connive to steal what naturally belongs to all of us. What SERAP is doing is very right. Other CSOs, non-governmental organizations, should follow suit. And even you, the citizen, you can also be a part of it by asking questions, by going to court. The likes of Gani Fawemi was noted for going to court to seek for order of mandamus to compel the government and security agencies to take actions they should have ordinarily taken. What stops the FCC, ICPC from taking that action, from prosecuting these suspected budget padders? Must they wait for SERAP to do it? These are some of the questions. But let's share some of the mails from our email platform with you. After that, we'll come to more reports and analysis.
Hello and welcome to the mail segment. I am Tenikang Akipu.
And I'm Ifeanyi Nwobi. Good morning.
We're starting with a mail from Hakim Kazim. He writes on Democracy Day celebration. He says, still on the presidential address is meant primarily to kick off campaign for the 2019 general election. The key areas of change, economy, security, employment, and anti-corruption promised by the administration in 2015 is still a mirage. It is all motion without movement. On the economy, Nigeria has the highest interest rate charged by banks in Africa. The exchange rate is still second only to Zimbabwe, and domestically, the cost of doing business is still very high, particularly energy, port charges, excessive tax, and huge infrastructure deficit. The PIB bill is still hanging due to lack of political will and conspiracy. Talk of unemployment and inflation, it is still very high compared to pre-2015 level. Our security situation is now getting worse, with the herdsmen insurgency supplanting Boko Haram menace, rampant kidnapping and lethargic response by the government, and the attendant threat of food security. The hope and optimism that ushered this administration into power in 2015 has evaporated and turned to despair and hopelessness. There is palpable division along ethnic and religious divide in the polity made worse by the government's clannishness. We owe it a duty to tell this administration that Nigerians are worse off today than they were 3 years ago and are now eating from the dustbin. The urgency of true and fiscal federalism is now. God bless Nigeria.
And Ngozi Okoronko from Maitama in Abuja says, the presidency is making frantic efforts to stop NPDP from decamping from APC because 2019 elections is around the corner. Johesu has been on strike for over 40 days now, yet the strike has not been resolved. I call on the presidency to listen to the demands of Johesu with a view to resolving the issues and save our health sector.
And that will do for the mail segment. Keep sending your mails to politicalplatform@yahoo.com and politicalplatform@raypower.fm.
Thank you so much for your mails. Let's quickly welcome Sojia Pampa. He is a civil rights activist and an anti-corruption researcher.
Yeah, he runs an NGO called Integrity.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.
So, how do you react to the judgment the Federal High Court delivered in Lagos yesterday, compelling the federal government to prosecute those suspected to have helped themselves with the budget funds in the National Assembly?
I think that this is a step in the right direction. Perhaps it would also help the judiciary to acquit itself better and change public perception, because the public's perception of the judiciary is that they are aiding and abetting corruption. So I think a judgment like that coming out at this time will encourage the public that perhaps something can still be done through the judiciary to deal with corruption. But on the issue of the budget padding itself, yes, it gives room to a lot of corrupt horse trading between the executive and the legislature. So nipping this in the bud is certainly a very welcome situation, but we have to, of course, test it and see how far the government is willing to go in prosecuting those who are involved. The challenge would come. How do you identify those who are specifically involved with budget padding? But I'm sure those technical details will be worked out.
It's all about the constituency project, and it's not the controversy didn't start today. There's so much secrecy and controversy around constituency project. Some see it as a sort of sludge fund.
Yes, you see, constituency projects, you put it in. So long as you say that it was part of the process from the beginning, then would you call it padding? There's still a lot of technical definitions to come through. So what if the lawmaker says, I'm not the one who put that figure in. It is whoever it is from the executive that put that figure in. How do you prove that is the specific lawmaker? That's why I said in the end, there will be some technical details to work out as to exactly how to implement this judgment, but it's a welcome judgment and it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, if you look at this judgment and the clamor by organizations who should lead and those of others, that the citizens themselves must own this fight against corruption. How do we move forward from this judgment that was given? And how do we involve the citizens to own the fight against corruption?
The first thing is that so long as people are ignorant about the budget and the role of the budget in development and how the things in the budget actually affect them, then you're not really going to have much traction with the people. So there is a big job of education to be done. Now, after they understand that, we also have to help the citizen have a role in determining which projects should be done, where they should be cited, and how much it is. Because except we do that, they're not going to be in a position to monitor what actually happens with the monies. But we all know that just having it in the budget doesn't mean that the monies will be released at the end of the day to actually implement. So there is a huge task that still needs to be done and a lot of ground to be covered. But again, I say this is a step in the right direction, and it gives those who are working on budget issues the kind of leverage they need to push the frontiers forward a lot more than we already have.
The constituency projects is not very far from the security votes that we see the executive manage in terms of the way it's appropriated and the way it's expended, shrouded in secrecy, forcing Transparency International to challenge Nigeria to scrap the issue of security vote. How do you react to that?
I think it's an aberration to start with, because I don't understand how the legislature will decide that there are certain projects they want to do and that they are going to oversee and manage, and then yet they're the ones who should be helping us get the best budgetary outcomes. It's already created a conflict. It sets up a serious conflict, if not a conflict of interest, a serious conflict of duty. So who do they have a duty towards? Towards trying to get as much money for themselves, or doing what is in the best interest of the majority of citizens? So who will they be acting, on whose behalf will they be acting? So there's a conflict there very clearly, and it's best that we don't even have such a vote in the first place. So I agree with the position that you say Transparency International has taken, asking the government to scrap it. It should be scrapped.
That's a security vote.
Of course, that is a political thing.
Okay, so how do you expect the government to react to this judgment? Is a court judgment, if it's not, even when it's appealed, they should begin the implementation right away?
That is what we expect for any government that respects the judgments coming out of the courts, and they should implement it right away. And if they're not implementing it, this is where a lot of us should be making noise about the need for them to do the right thing.
Okay, we have to thank you so much, Sojia Pampa of the Integrity Group, for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's come to issues of spending of our money, especially with the budget. Well, there were promises that the minimum wage will be reviewed by September this year. That's a few months away. There's a possibility that the minimum wage may be increased from 18,000. Labour proposed, was it 56 or 54? 66,000. The government now set up a tripartite committee. Zonal public hearings were held. I think they just concluded. But the Minister of Labour and Productivity, Chris Ngige, said yesterday that it's not likely, or that it's unlikely, that that minimum wage may take effect this year. Labour will not find this thing very funny. He cited a lot of reasons that during the public hearing at the zonal level, state governments said they are struggling to pay the 18,000. So how do you expect them to pay an increase minimum wage? That is not possible, except there is an alteration of the revenue sharing formula to make provisions for more funds to go to the states than the federal government.
Amechi, I have always clamored that there should be a benchmark where you tell other states this is the level at which you can go low. So it will now depend on state to decide what they pay their workers. But if the state or the executives of states are saying they can't afford to pay because they are not able to pay 18,000 minimum wage, then we need to ask them, are you a lazy executive? If you keep running to federal government all the time, that won't help. But how many of those states are actually viable enough to cater to the needs of paying their workers' salaries? These are questions we should also ask. I still think we need to restructure, especially devolve power straight to the people at the state level so that they can own their resources. But because of the bottlenecks that we have with our constitution, a lot of things will not allow this to happen. Let government start working it out today. The state government cannot keep running. They are not telling you to increase the sharing formula. It's funny. It's very funny.
Well, it's when the issue of the minimum wage started, I was, it was heartwarming when government came and set up that committee. But for for me, who has monitored the issue, the politics of wages in the country in the past, I was also conscious of the fact that a little bit of politics is actually being played to satisfy the need. I mean, to pretend to satisfy the needs of Nigerian workers.
People. Okay.
And it's now becoming clear that the thing may really be just be a political act.
Well, let's bring in Obuniko Hebu, a lawyer, into the discussion about the status of a constituency project. He may have an alternative opinion. Thank you so much for joining us, Hebu.
Thank you very much, Amechi.
So, what's your position on the constituency project?
My position is that people have a gross misunderstanding of what constituency project is. While I'm not standing in for the National Assembly, but coming from Nnewi South and Bobo in particular, I could see a lot of projects that have been attracted to my community because of constituency projects. As we speak, there is nobody from my local government that is a permanent secretary. There's nobody from my community that is a minister. There's nobody from my community. Go and check the communities of those people at those positions, and you will realize what the point I'm trying to make. The projects we have, we are attracted by the member representing my community in the National Assembly. And those projects, if you go there, you see the signboards, are being executed by the executive. The contracts were awarded by the executive arm, and they are being implemented by the...
But we have to thank you so much for your time. Joining us at short notice, Obuniko Hebu, a lawyer and public affairs analyst. The much we can take on today's edition of the program. We'll return tomorrow with another edition. My name is Busted.